Good day, everyone. My topic is about Rizal's choice of the Morga. So, why did Rizal choose Morga other Spanish chronicles, and why does he recommend Morga to his countrymen? So, surely Antonio Pigafetta's account of the Magellan's expedition was more detailed or closer to the point of first contact between Philippines and Spanish. So, here are the following were Rizal's consideration on choosing Morga's writing. First, the original book was rare. Originally published in Mexico in 1609 and was therefore rare. It had never been reprinted in full until the annotated Rizal's edition came of the press of Grenier Hermanos in Paris, 1889. And his introduction, Blumentritt, notes that the book is so rare that the few libraries that have a copy guard it with the same cares as they would an Inca treasure. So, Morga's book is rare. The original Spanish textbook of Morga's Successions had never been reprinted in full until annotated edition of Rizal, so that is why he prepared Morga because it is rare. However, after the Rizal edition, there was a magnificent edition by Wencelio Emilio Renata 1909. So Ritana's edition invaluable because it is the coming from the primary source material. Morga himself and other contemporaries drawn from the Archivo General de Indias in Seville, which amplify and enrich the main text. However, it is not accessible to those who cannot read Spanish. Stanley English edition of Morga was more popular and satisfactory, and results stand on the principle that the annotation to Morga should be made not by a foreigner but by an Indio. So Jose Rizal believed that the annotation which aimed to correct the misconception and provide insight to Philippines history and culture should be made by Filipino rather than the foreigner, because I was saying it was a point of view as a Filipino in the Philippines. Rizal's second consideration of the choice of Morga. So Morga was a layman, not a religious chronicler. Morga was that it was the only civil, as opposed to religious, ecclesiastical history of the Philippines written during the colonial period. Chronicles by Spanish colonial official or non-religious were rare, making Morga for over 2 centuries the only secular general history of the Philippines in print. So, the main complaint against religious historian was that they dealt more with the church history rather than the history of the Philippines and its people. Rizal third consideration of the choice of Morga. So, Rizal felt Morga to be more objective than the religious writers whose account included many miracles. So, the third consideration for the choice of Morga was Rizal's opinion that this secular account was more objective, more trustworthy than those writers by the religious missionaries, which were liberally sprinkled with the tale of miracle and apparition. All the historian written by the religious before and after Morga up to our days abound with stories of devils, miracle, apparition, and etc. This from the bulk of the voluminous histories of the Philippines. So, sabi pa ni Rizal, mas maganda pa yung gawa ni Morga kaysa mga praile na nagbabanal-banalan, and it has na niligtas nila ang Pilipinas sa kadiliman. Rizal annotation fall into two categories. First, It was straightforward historical annotation where Rizal amplifies or correct the original. Second, it was an annotation which, through historically based, reflect his strong anti-clerical bias. Rizal's fourth consideration of the choice of Morga. So Morga was more sympathetic, at least in part, to the Indios in contrast of the friars' accounts. So they only after the religious consolidate position did they begin to spread calumnies and debase the Indios races, the Philippines with a view to giving themselves more importance, making themselves indispensable, and those exhausting their stupidity and ignorance with the pretend coarseness of the Indios. There is, however, an exception for the Jesuits who always educated and enlightened the Indios without declaring themselves as eternal protectors, tutors, defenders, etc. of the Indios. So, mas maganda yung gawa ni Morga dahil merong awa doon sa mga natives kumpara sa mga praile na ang tingin nila sa Filipinos is in a negative way. So that is why ito yung fourth consideration sa pagpili ni Rizal sa libro ni Morga. Rizal fifth consideration of the choice of Morga. Morga was not only an eyewitness but a major actor in the event he narrates. The Jesuits, unlike the other religious order, were spread, arrested, and abused by the Filipino forces during the second phase of the Philippines Revolution that began in 1898. Moreover, the Jesuits maintained a good reputation regarding their vows of poverty and chastity simply because the order was supposed by the Pope in the 18th century. The Spanish king ordered the expulsion of the Jesuits and the confiscation of their properties in all Spanish dominions. Therefore, the Jesuits had been absent from the Philippines from 1768 until they were allowed to return in 1859. Upon the return, the religious order that had taken over their property refused to yield both physical and ecclesiastical jurisdiction. Those Jesuits were sent to establish missions in the southern, predominantly Muslim island of Mindanao. A twist of history made them lose an opportunity to become a wealthy London religious corporation despite by Indios. So Morga was an eyewitness for a primary source in the Philippines and its people at the point of the first contact of Spain. So, mas maganda yung gawa ni Morga kaysa mga praile na mga nagbabanal-banalan. So, hindi lang to basta nakarating sa Pilipinas, kundi nagkaroon ng immersion na nakita niya mismo ang nangyari. Kaya, reliable yung source niya. So, he is an honest observer.